Vex 9 adjusted his 4 eyes, trying to get a better look at the newest addition to Advanced Combat Theory class. The human sat there, completely oblivious to the death stares being directed at her from every corner of the lecture hall. Her name was Maya Foster, according to the class roster, and she was about to become either the most legendary cadet in Galactic Academy history, or the shortest-lived. Well, Professor Krath X clicked his mandibles together in what passed for amusement among his species. It seems the Academy has decided to grace us with a representative from Earth today. How quaint. Maya looked up from her tablet, raising one eyebrow. Quaint? That's the best you've got. I was expecting something with a bit more bite from a species that looks like a cross between a praying mantis and a bad attitude. The entire class went dead silent. Vex 9's breathing apparatus nearly malfunctioned. Did the human just insult Professor Krath X? The same professor who once dissolved a Zentaran student for sneezing too loudly during his lecture? Krath X's compound eyes glittered with malicious delight. Oh, I see. The little mammal has jokes. How delightfully predictable. He began pacing around the front of the classroom, his 6 legs clicking against the metal floor like a countdown timer to execution. Tell me, Miss Foster, what do you know about survival? Well, Maya leaned back in her chair, completely relaxed. I know that talking about it instead of doing it usually means you're about to die very, very badly. Several students in the back rows started making what could only be described as nervous chittering sounds. Just one thing before we begin. YouTube tells me 94.3% of you watching aren't subscribed. Subscribing is free. It really supports the channel, and you'll get more amazing HFY sci-fi stories delivered straight to you. Don't miss out. Blix 4, a gorillian sitting 2 seats over, whispered urgently, "She's insane. Completely, utterly insane." But Vex 9 noticed something odd. While Maya appeared casual, almost bored even, her right hand kept drifting down toward her bag. More specifically, toward something under her desk. Something that seemed to be making a very, very soft, rumbling sound. "Excellent!" Professor Krath X's voice dripped with sadistic glee. "Since our human friend seems so confident, perhaps she'd like to volunteer for today's practical exercise." Practical exercise? Maya's voice remained steady, but that rumbling sound got a little louder. The professor's mandibles spread wide in what was definitely not a smile. Combat simulation, live ammunition, real consequences. He gestured to the arena that materialized in the center of the classroom. You versus 3 of our most enthusiastic cadets. From the senior rows, 3 figures stood up. Zank 14, a muscle-bound brutarian who'd apparently been held back for the 4th year running. Kix 2, whose species specialized in acid secretions and bad attitudes. And Vorth, a Scalaxian who looked like someone had given a spider the ability to lift weights and harbor grudges. "Oh, come on," Maya sighed, finally showing some emotion. Annoyance. 3 against 1? That's not a combat simulation. That's just bullying with extra steps. "Life isn't fair, little human," Krath X cackled. "Perhaps you should have considered that before your species decided to join civilized society." The rumbling under Maya's desk was getting noticeably louder now. Several students had started looking around nervously, trying to locate the source of the sound. "You know what?" Maya stood up, brushing off her uniform. "Fine. But when this goes sideways, and trust me, it will go sideways in ways that will make your nightmares have nightmares. Don't say I didn't warn you." She walked toward the arena, and that's when Vex 9 noticed something truly bizarre. Maya's shadow seemed wrong. Too big, too dark, and it appeared to be moving independently of her body. Before we begin, Professor Krath X announced, I should mention that medical assistance will be provided. Eventually. The Academy's insurance policy specifically excludes incidents involving human casualties, so please try to leave enough pieces for identification purposes. The 3 senior cadets stepped into the arena, weapons materializing in their appendages. Zank 14 hefted a plasma cannon that could punch through starship hull plating. Kix 2's acid sacs were visibly swelling with anticipation. Vorth extended razor-sharp claws that gleamed under the classroom lights. Maya stepped in empty-handed. "Where's your weapon, human?" Zank 14 rumbled, his voice like grinding metal. Maya glanced back toward her desk, where that rumbling sound had now become clearly audible to everyone in the classroom. "Oh, I have a weapon. It's just particular about making appearances." "This is pathetic," Kix 2 hissed, acid dripping from his speech orifices. "They send us a defenseless mammal?" "Defenseless?" Maya laughed, and there was something in that laugh that made Vex 9's survival instincts start screaming. "Oh, honey, that's adorable. You think I'm defenseless?" The arena's force field activated with a low hum, trapping the 4 combatants inside. Professor Krath X raised one clawed appendage. "Combat begins! Now!" All 3 seniors rushed Maya simultaneously. Zank 14's plasma cannon charged with a whine that hurt the auditory organs. Kix 2 launched a stream of acid that could melt through battle armor. Vorth moved faster than most eyes could track. Maya didn't move. She just smiled and said very quietly, "Rex, I think these nice beings want to play." The rumbling stopped. For exactly 1 second, the classroom was completely silent. Then something roared. It wasn't the roar of any known species. It wasn't the roar of anything that should exist in the same universe as rational thought and peaceful sleep. It was a sound that reached into the deepest, most primitive parts of every brain in that room and started screaming warnings about things that hunt in the dark. The arena's floor buckled. A massive shadow erupted from beneath Maya's desk, flowing like liquid darkness across the classroom floor and through the supposedly impenetrable force field as if it were made of paper. The shadow rose up behind Maya, taking shape. Vex 9's 4 eyes tried to process what he was seeing and gave up halfway through. The thing was huge, easily 3 times Maya's height, with what looked like way too many teeth arranged in a grin that could haunt entire civilizations. Its eyes glowed with the kind of red that usually preceded the heat death of solar systems. "Students," the thing spoke in a voice like grinding planets, "allow me to introduce myself. I am what humans call a pet, though that term is insufficient." Zank 14's plasma cannon discharged accidentally, the bolt sizzling harmlessly against the creature's hide. "What? What is that thing?" Maya reached up and scratched what might have been the creature's chin. "This is Rex. He's very protective. Also, he hasn't eaten in about 3 hours, so he's getting a bit cranky." "You brought a predator into the academy?" Professor Krath X's voice had climbed several octaves. "Predator?" Maya looked genuinely offended. "Rex isn't a predator. Predators hunt for survival. Rex hunts for fun. There's a significant difference, academically speaking." Rex opened what Vex 9 desperately hoped was his mouth, revealing rows upon rows of teeth that seemed to go back far deeper than physics should have allowed. "Indeed. I prefer to think of myself as an enthusiast." Kix 2 tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go inside the arena. This is impossible. Nothing that large could hide under a desk. Oh, sweetie. Maya patted Rex's massive flank affectionately. You're thinking in 3 dimensions. Rex exists in several dimensions simultaneously. Most of them are significantly less pleasant than this one. Vorth, who had been the first to attack, was now pressed against the arena's far wall, his multiple eyes wide with terror. The Academy will hear about this. There are regulations, rules. Rex leaned down until his glowing eyes were level with the Scalaxian. Rules? How quaint. Tell me, small spider thing, do you know what happened to the last beings who tried to hurt my human? What happened to them? Rex's grin somehow got wider. I'm still digesting them. The screaming stopped last week, but the pleading continues. Professor Krath X was frantically pressing buttons on his control panel. Emergency shutdown. Medical teams to combat theory. We have a code black situation. Actually, Maya said conversationally, it's more of a code, oh dear God, what have we done situation. Code black implies there's still hope for survival. The arena's force field flickered and died. Instead of freedom, this just meant that Rex was no longer contained. He flowed out of the arena like spilled nightmare, his massive form somehow fitting through spaces that were physically too small for him. Now then, Rex rumbled, his attention turning to the rest of the class, which of you were planning to watch my human die for entertainment? The classroom erupted in panic. Students began teleporting, phasing, and, in one memorable case, trying to tunnel through solid metal with their bare appendages. Vex 9 found himself frozen in terror, unable to look away from the creature's burning eyes. Maya walked calmly out of the arena, stepping over Zank 14, who had apparently fainted. I tried to warn you all that this would go sideways, but did anyone listen? Number. It's always the same with bullies. They never expect the quiet kid to have a pet that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Miss Foster! Professor Krath X had backed himself into a corner, his mandibles clicking frantically. This is highly irregular. Pets are not allowed in combat exercises. Oh, this isn't a pet situation anymore, Maya replied cheerfully. This is a you just threatened a human in front of her companion situation. Rex takes that very personally. Rex had cornered 3 students near the emergency exit, his head tilted in consideration. Which one of you looks the most appetizing? Decisions? Decisions? Please. One of them, a Zentaran with purple scales, was practically vibrating with fear. We didn't do anything. We were just watching. Just watching. Rex's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried throughout the entire room. You were just watching, while 3 beings planned to murder my human? How disappointing. Maya snapped her fingers. Rex, heal! The massive creature immediately padded over to Maya's side, though his glowing eyes never left the terrified students. Yes, little human? They've learned their lesson, I think. Besides, if you eat them now, who's going to spread the story about what happens to people who mess with humans? Rex considered this, his head tilting thoughtfully. An excellent point. Terror is much more effective when it has time to grow and spread. He turned back to the cowering students. You have been granted a reprieve. Use it wisely. And remember, every time you close your eyes, every shadow you see, every strange sound in the night, that might be me, coming to check on my human's well-being. Professor Krath X had managed to activate the emergency communication system. Security to combat theory. We have a situation with an unregistered creature of unknown origin and hostile intent. Maya sighed. Rex, I think we've outstayed our welcome. Shall I eat the security team when they arrive? Rex asked hopefully. Maybe just traumatize them a little. We want to make friends here, not start an intergalactic incident. You call this making friends? Vex 9 finally found his voice. Maya turned to look at him, and for the first time, he saw something almost human in her expression. Loneliness, maybe. When you're the only human in a school full of aliens who think your species is a joke, you take friendship where you can find it, even if it comes with way too many teeth and an unhealthy appetite for fear. The classroom doors burst open as Academy security forces poured in, weapons drawn. They took one look at Rex and immediately began reconsidering their career choices. Attention, unknown entity! The security chief, a heavily armored Coraxian, tried to sound authoritative. You are in violation of Academy regulations regarding unauthorized biological weapons. Rex laughed, a sound like mountains crumbling. Biological weapon? How insulting! I prefer misunderstood companion animal. Maya started gathering her things from her desk, completely ignoring the armed security forces. Don't mind Rex, officers. He's mostly harmless. Emphasis on mostly. Mostly? The security chief's voice cracked. Well, Maya shouldered her bag. He's never eaten anyone who didn't deserve it. Technically. Rex began to fade around the edges, becoming translucent. I should return to my proper dimensional space before I accidentally unmake reality again. That paperwork is always such a hassle. Again, Professor Krath X squeaked. The Andromeda Galaxy incident was an accident, Rex said defensively. How was I supposed to know that sneezing, while existing in 17 dimensions simultaneously, would cause a minor Big Bang? As Rex faded completely from view, Maya walked toward the exit. The security forces, still stunned, parted like water before her. Miss Foster, Professor Krath X called after her. Where do you think you're going? Maya paused at the doorway, turning back with a smile that was somehow more terrifying than Rex's fangs. To my next class, obviously. Advanced Xenobiology. I have a presentation on Earth's fauna that I think everyone will find very educational. She left, and the classroom fell silent except for the sound of various beings trying to restart their respiratory systems. Vex 9 looked around at his classmates, all of whom wore the same expression of existential terror mixed with grudging respect. So, he said finally, anyone else thinking of changing majors? The exodus began immediately. Professor Krath X stood in his empty classroom, mandibles still clicking nervously, and began drafting a very carefully worded report to the Academy administration. How exactly do you explain that your simple combat exercise had resulted in contact with an extra-dimensional entity of unknown power who considered a human to be its little human? More importantly, how do you explain that said human was now wandering the Academy halls with access to advanced xenobiology equipment? Somewhere in the distance, another roar echoed through the Academy corridors. Class was officially dismissed. Dr. Yilks Prime had been teaching advanced xenobiology for 237 years. In that time, she'd seen students faint at the sight of dissected Krellian parasites, watched promising scholars flee, screaming from lectures on carnivorous plant species, and once had to evacuate an entire laboratory when someone accidentally released a swarm of flesh-eating microorganisms. But she'd never had a student walk into her classroom followed by whispered legends and the lingering scent of interdimensional terror. Maya Foster entered the xenobiology lab like she owned the place, completely ignoring the way every conversation died the moment she appeared. Word traveled fast in the Academy, and apparently The story of combat theory had already reached mythic proportions. "Ah, Miss Foster, Doctor." Yilk's Prime's tentacles writhed nervously as she consulted her tablet. "I understand you have a presentation prepared for us today?" "That's right." Maya set her bag down carefully beside the central examination table. "Earth's fauna. I thought everyone might benefit from a more hands-on approach to learning." Grix 8, a Malarian sitting in the front row, leaned forward eagerly. "Is it true you have a creature that exists in multiple dimensions?" "Rex? Oh, he's not part of today's presentation. He's taking a nap in the space between spaces. Apparently, terrorizing an entire combat theory class works up quite an appetite for non-existence." Maya began unpacking her materials. "Today, we're focusing on more conventional Earth animals." The class relaxed visibly. Conventional seemed safe. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Now," Maya continued, pulling out what appeared to be a standard containment unit, "who can tell me what they know about Earth's ecosystem?" Trix 4, a insectoid Vexarian, raised one of her 6 arms. "Earth is a Class M planet with moderate biodiversity, mostly harmless herbivores and small predators, correct?" Maya's grin could have powered a small starship. "Oh, that's adorable. You've been reading the sanitized reports, haven't you?" Dr. Yilk's Prime felt her stomachs beginning to churn. "Miss Foster, what exactly did you bring for your presentation?" "Well," Maya activated the first containment unit, "I thought we'd start with something simple. Everyone, meet Charlie." The unit opened, and out crawled what looked like a tiny, fluffy spider, barely larger than Maya's thumb. The collective sigh of relief from the class was audible. "Oh," Brix 2 cooed. "It's actually quite cute for an Earth creature." Maya nodded enthusiastically. "Charlie is a Sydney funnel web spider. Aren't you, Charlie?" She let the spider crawl onto her hand. "Native to Australia, which is basically Earth's way of asking, what if an entire continent wanted to kill you?" "It's so small, though," Grix 8 observed. "Surely something that size couldn't be dangerous." "Charlie's venom can kill a full-grown human in 15 minutes, Maya said cheerfully. "The neurotoxins attack the nervous system, causing muscle spasms, difficulty breathing, and eventually cardiac arrest. Charlie here has enough venom to kill about 20 humans, or roughly. Let me see." She pulled out a calculator. "Carry the 2. Approximately 400 Malarians." Grix 8 went very, very pale. "But that's just our warm-up act," Maya continued, letting Charlie crawl back into his container. "Let me introduce you to Samantha." The second containment unit was significantly larger. When it opened, what emerged looked like a serpent, but with patterns that seemed to shift and move independently of the creature's body. "Samantha is a fer de lance," Maya explained, gently coaxing the snake out. "From Earth's tropical regions. She's what we call a hot snake. Not because of temperature, mind you, but because her venom causes hemorrhaging so severe that victims literally bleed from every orifice until they die." Dr. Yilk's Prime's tentacles had gone completely rigid. "Miss Foster, perhaps we should focus on herbivores." "Oh, we'll get to those," Maya promised. "But first, let me show you why Samantha is special. Unlike Charlie, whose venom kills through neurotoxicity, Samantha's venom is hemotoxic. It destroys blood vessels, breaks down tissue, and causes massive internal bleeding. The really fun part is that it can take hours to kill you, during which time you remain conscious for most of the process. Several students had begun backing toward the exits. But wait, there's more! Maya opened a third container, this one clearly reinforced with military-grade materials. Everyone, say hello to Bruce. What emerged defied several laws of physics and at least one law of good taste. It was roughly the size of Maya's fist, covered in what looked like armor plating, with multiple legs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Bruce is a Goliath bird-eater tarantula, Maya announced. The name is misleading, though. Bruce doesn't just eat birds, he eats anything he can catch. Birds, lizards, small mammals, insects, other spiders. Bruce is what we call an opportunistic predator, which is a polite way of saying he'll eat literally anything that moves. Bruce chose that moment to rear up on his hind legs, displaying fangs that gleamed like polished obsidian. Those fangs are about an inch long, Maya continued conversationally. While his venom isn't usually fatal to humans, the mechanical damage from those fangs can be significant. Plus, Bruce can kick off urticating hairs that cause severe irritation to any mucous membranes they contact. Trix 4 had climbed onto her desk. What do you mean, kick off hairs? Maya gently touched Bruce's abdomen, and suddenly the air around the spider shimmered with thousands of nearly invisible hairs. Like that. Those hairs are barbed and designed to embed in soft tissue. If you breathe them in, they can cause respiratory distress for weeks. The class was now pressed against the walls of the laboratory. But here's the really interesting part about Earth fauna, Maya continued, completely oblivious to the growing panic around her. What I've shown you so far? These are the harmless ones. Dr. Yilkes Prime's voice came out as a strangled whisper. Harmless? Oh, yes. Charlie, Samantha, and Bruce are all relatively docile. They only attack when threatened. Now, let me show you something that attacks for fun. Maya opened the largest container she'd brought. Nothing came out. For a long moment, the class held its collective breath. Then something laughed from inside the container. Not the laugh of any creature that should exist. A laugh that suggested the universe was a joke, and the punchline was everyone else's suffering. Come on out, Fluffy, Maya coaxed. Don't be shy. What emerged from the container looked like someone had taken a house cat and redesigned it by a committee of sadistic engineers. It was sleek, black, about the size of a normal feline, but its eyes glowed with an intelligence that was distinctly unsettling. Fluffy is a black-footed cat, Maya announced, native to southern Africa. She's the deadliest hunter in the entire cat family. Grix 8, who had been slowly edging toward the door, froze. Deadlier than your large cats? Your lions and tigers? Maya's laugh was almost as unsettling as Fluffy's had been. Lions have a hunt success rate of about 25%. Tigers do slightly better at 30%. Fluffy here, 60% success rate. She kills something every single night. For fun. Fluffy stretched, displaying claws that seemed far too large for her body, and began grooming herself with a tongue that looked like it could strip paint. The really remarkable thing about Fluffy, Maya continued, is her hunting style. She doesn't just kill for food. She kills because she enjoys it. Scientists have observed black-footed cats killing prey, eating a small portion, and then continuing to hunt throughout the night, killing animals they have no intention of eating. Dr. Yilkes Prime had backed herself into a corner. That's psychopathic behavior. We prefer the term efficient, Maya replied. Fluffy can hunt in complete silence, can leap 3 times her own height, and has night vision so acute she can spot prey in conditions that would blind most other species. Fluffy finished grooming and fixed her glowing eyes on Brix 2, who immediately began hyperventilating. Now, Maya opened her final container, let me show you the crown jewel of Earth's ecosystem. This time, What emerged was almost anticlimactically normal-looking. A small, brown and white bird that couldn't have weighed more than a few ounces. The class, expecting another nightmare creature, relaxed slightly. "This is Peep," Maya announced. "She's a shrike, also known as a butcher bird." "It looks so innocent," Trix 4 ventured. Maya's smile could have frozen helium. "Peep impales her prey on thorns and barbed wire while it's still alive, then tears it apart piece by piece. She's been observed torturing prey for hours before finally killing it. Scientists believe she does this because she enjoys the sound of screaming." Peep tilted her head and made a sound that was somehow both melodic and deeply threatening. "The really fascinating aspect of shrike behavior," Maya continued, setting up a small branch with several sharp thorns, "is their tendency to create what we call larders. They collect prey animals, impale them while alive, and then leave them there to die slowly, while they hunt for more." To demonstrate, Peep immediately grabbed a small piece of synthetic meat Maya offered and flew to the thorny branch, impaling it with surgical precision. "Of course," Maya said, "what I've shown you today represents the gentle side of Earth's ecosystem." The class stared at her in horror. "The gentle side?" Dr. Yilkes Prime's voice cracked completely. "Oh yes. I didn't bring any of the really dangerous animals. No sharks, no crocodiles, no army ants, no bullet ants, no blue-ringed octopi, no cone snails, no cassowaries, no hippos." Maya began packing up her creatures. "And definitely no humans." "Humans aren't dangerous," Grix 8 protested weakly. Maya paused in her packing, fixing him with a look that made Rex's glowing eyes seem friendly by comparison. "Humans," she said slowly, "are the only species on Earth that other apex predators actively avoid. We're the only species that kills for sport, wages war for ideology, and keeps the deadliest creatures on the planet as pets because we think they're cute." She gestured to her collection of containers. "Everything I showed you today? We keep them in our homes, we breed them, we study them. We handle them with our bare hands because we find them interesting." The class was now pressed against the laboratory's far wall, like they were trying to meld with the metal. "But here's the really terrifying part," Maya continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried throughout the entire room. "Humans are considered the friendly species on Earth. We're the ones who try to make peace, who offer aid, who attempt diplomacy." Dr. Yilkes Prime found her voice. "What about the unfriendly ones?" Maya's grin returned, wider than ever. "We don't let the unfriendly ones off-planet." At that moment, the laboratory's communication system crackled to life. "Attention all students and faculty. This is Academy Administration. We have received reports of unusual sounds coming from the Xenobiology laboratory. Please confirm all safety protocols are being followed." Maya keyed the communication panel. "This is Cadet Foster. Everything's fine here. We're just having an educational discussion about biodiversity. Cadet Foster, you are requested to report to the Dean's office immediately." Maya sighed and finished packing her creatures. "I suppose that's my cue. Thank you all for being such an attentive audience." As she headed for the door, containers in hand, Fluffy padding along beside her, and Peep perched on her shoulder, Maya paused. "Oh, one more thing. If anyone is thinking about filing a complaint about today's presentation, you should know that Rex takes criticism of my academic performance very personally." The pike temperature in the room dropped noticeably, and several students swore they saw shadows moving independently of any light source. "Have a lovely rest of your day, everyone," Maya called cheerfully as she left. The laboratory fell silent, except for the sound of various respiratory systems attempting to restart. Dr. Yilks Prime looked around at her traumatized students and made a decision that would change the course of her career. "Class dismissed," she announced, "forever." As the students fled, she began drafting a transfer request to a nice, safe position in theoretical mathematics. Somewhere in the distance, something roared approvingly, and the Academy's lights flickered in what might have been amusement. The human cadet was loose in the Academy, armed with an interdimensional monster, a collection of psychopathic Earth fauna, and what appeared to be an extremely twisted sense of humor. The galaxy would never be the same.